Maya, what is psychological safety and why is that so important in leading a team?
Well, Jesse, psychological safety is defined as a sense of confidence that the team will not embarrass, reject, or punish someone for speaking up. Okay, and so the Harvard Business School professor Amy Edmondson defined it as a shared belief held by members of a team that the team is safe for interpersonal risk taking. Okay, so what it means is that when people work together in a team setting, that they need to feel safe so then they can fully contribute and be themselves. Um, if you if when people feel there's a sense of fear or they're afraid of being embarrassed or blamed for something, that naturally that there's a fight or flight responses. And a lot of times that people actually simply checked out and freeze up or shut down when they feel threatened or they don't feel safe. And what happened is that when that happened, that they don't ask questions, they don't share their ideas, and they don't raise concerns. And sometimes that they also have a very low motivation and they don't fully contribute. So they're not giving all they have, and this can really impact their their performance and also can impact the teamwork. Now, so on the flip side, when people feel safe, I mean, imagine that when you feel safe, right? What do? We talk more, we laugh more, and we also tend to feel more empowered to take actions. And we're not worried about being judged, but rather we speak our mind and we share our ideas and we don't worry too much about being right or wrong. We focus on solving problems and do our best work, and instead of worry about self-protection. So the psychological safety has can significantly impact individual and the team performance. And that's why it's so important. That's something that people are, has been discussed widely. And how do you create psychological safety? Now, there is a very famous Google study that I think, has been widely publicized. Talk about their number one reason that the team perform well is because there's a psychological safety. And then psychological safety entail two key behaviors. Number one is that people in a team, they have conversation turn taking. So people take turn to communicate, to speak, to discuss, to share their ideas. And at the end of the meeting, everyone felt like they have said what they want to say. They don't hold back and they express fully. And the second element is to have people have high level of social sensitivity. So then they tune in to each other's feelings, expressions, verbal, nonverbal cues, and then so they demonstrate empathy. So when you have those two elements and at play in the teamwork, then people tend to feel safe and when they work together, and that become a key ingredient for a high performing team.
So, if you are in the context of a meeting and you're the leader, if you can make sure that number one, you don't do all the talking yourself, but also you don't necessarily let some of the more extroverted people do all the talking either, but you give each person a chance to fully express themselves, that creates some
Yes,
safety. And then
absolutely,
let
absolutely.
people um, be okay with sharing feelings and concerns and asking questions and not ridiculing them or blaming them or or tolerating people to do that. So creating a safe environment, it's okay to say things and not worry about getting blowback.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And recently I've worked with a leader that she came to me because she realized that her team is disengaged and actually is having some performance issues. and people are not willing to take actions or take any risk. And so as we dig deeper, that and also through some of the 360 feedback, that we've learned that, well, they like many leaders today, we use this tool called Slack to communicate with our teams, right? And so day in, day out, that all day long, they communicate with the team using Slack. And then so she, even with somebody sitting right next to her, she would send a message on Slack to tell them, what's happening. So now, what happened was that she prided herself for being very efficient, getting things done quickly, and then so she provide feedback on Slack. So everybody can see the feedback that she has specifically for certain specific individuals. And so over time, the person receiving that feedback feel embarrassed, humiliated, and devastated sometimes. And everybody else reading those feedback start thinking, well, I don't want to be like that person. So I better keep my head down and don't make any mistakes, because that is painful. So then very quickly, that those type of quick communication on the social on the communication platform create a fear-based culture, and people checked out, they don't contribute, they operate based on fear, and so the team stopped performing. And so when she realized that that was certainly not her intention, and so very quickly that she raised her human antenna in terms of being more aware of her own behaviors and the impact. And then she acquired those information. Those are the AAA models. So she acquired some of the feedback from her team, and then she adapted. So then she started to give critical feedback offline. And even positive recognition, that we very often we say we should also always praise in public and give negative feedback in person, but this may or may not work in for everybody. In fact, some people are uncomfortable receiving positive recognition in public. So then she get to know people and know their motivators and then their preferences, and then so this completely changed the way she leads her team. And it takes 6 months for her to rebuild that trust and rebuild the faith of her team members. And then so people started to feel comfortable sharing, taking risk, but it takes some time to rebuild that trust and then help people feel comfortable again.
But it worked. So it took 6 months, but I mean, a lot of times you would think you got no choice in that situation but to get rid of that leader and bring someone else in and try over. But she was able to make a change, and it took a long time, but 6 months isn't forever, and it provides a lot of hope, I think, for a lot of us who could see how we could do better.
Absolutely. And I think that just to have that awareness of that being able to master the concept of faith, right? And then so you honor people, you provide positive recognition, and also you're aware of not causing people to lose faith. And ultimately, that it's about being able to connect with people and then to be able to show that respect. And that's at the end of the day that we'll be able to build authentic long-term relationship, and that would make everybody involved feel win-win and for the best outcome.
Is there a risk in trying to preserve dignity but not deal with a real problem?
Yes, that's a great question. In fact, I have a whole chapter in the book talking about saving face for the wrong reason, right? And so sometimes people will use this term, saving face, to avoid conflict and to dance around the issue and not address it, or tolerate poor performance, and sometimes even cover up their own mistakes and avoid accountability. And those are the wrong reason for saving face. Okay. And then so when we think about saving face, that I look at, it's like an equation. So in order to effectively save face, you have to do two things. It's A and B. A is accountability, and B is benevolence. Okay, what I mean by that is that in order to effectively save face, we wanted to address an issue honestly, and I call that straight talk, is to say what you need to say to the right person at the right time, at the right place, respectfully, clearly, and accurately. And that's the straight talk. And that is holding people accountable. And the second part of saving face is called benevolence. So benevolence is that think about how you deliver this message, right? And then to really have the other person's back and have the best intention, and then use empathy and kindness so that the other person understand, get the message, and are motivated to make the positive change without feeling devalued, humiliated, and unappreciated. So it's those two things, accountability plus benevolence, that you can actually achieve the best result for saving face. I have a story for that if you have time for that.
Yes, tell us a story about that.
um, there, a financial director at a company that once actually faced a big crisis. So under his watch, that a frontline employee had stolen over $100,000 in an 8-month period. And as the financial director, his name, let's just call him Jeff. The Jeff had designed and deployed this entire cash flow process that actually allowed this employee to commit this fraud undetected. And so this is a high profile case. And then, it was discussed not only in the security meetings, but also spread quickly throughout the company. So he really lost face because of this mistake. Now, so the company's COO was based in Germany that planned a meeting with Jeff and also his entire financial team. He wanted to come over and meet with the whole team to address the issue. So for days, that Jeff felt like a dead man walking. Right? He lost weight. He couldn't sleep, and he also developed this rash because he was so stressed out. Okay? And then so when the day arrived, the team waited nervously at the conference room, and the COO walked in, and he broke the tension with this one sentence. He said, "I don't care about the theft." And then he said that the theft is unavoidable, whether you're running a hot dog stand or a multinational company. And the company was insured, so the company will be made whole. And the COO said, "I only want to know that you plan to review the process and fix it. And you seem to, well on your way from what I can see." And that's how you open up the meeting. And then so Jeff's demeanor immediately brightened, and for the rest of the meeting, that the whole team focused on no blaming, no finger pointing. They focusing on moving forward, solving the problem, and continue to and avoid this from happening again. So he returned to his job with renewed energy, and the COO had saved his face. But then he was able to do it with both accountability and also benevolence. And he created psychological safety, yet he also hold Jeff accountable on this situation. And he sent a clear message that I trust you. I have confidence in you to do the right thing.
That's a great story. I like that he set the frame immediately, that walking into the meeting, that I'm not trying to point fingers or find out who's to blame. This is a problem-solving meeting, and I trust that you guys are going to get this taken care of, and so it won't happen again.
Yes. So you can save face and still hold people accountable, and then to produce the best outcome.
Do you have any tips for how a leader can give one-on-one feedback effectively, but without someone losing face?
Yes, giving feedback, this word feedback has a really bad reputation, because nobody likes negative feedback, right? And so, but giving feedback is so important for leaders to be able to continue to work with their team, to manage the performance, and also help people get better. So how can you be effective in giving feedback without causing somebody to lose face? I like to think of it as, using the word we mentioned earlier, straight talk. Okay, to be able to give straight talk is that you would talk to the person, say what you need to say at the right place at the right time, and also do it accurately, respectfully, and clearly. And a lot of times when we give feedback, that we tend to kind of go either extreme. So instead of doing straight talk, we go into blunt talk. That we're being too blunt, and then we just want to get it off our chest, and we're frustrated, we're emotional, we're in a hurry. So then we dumped everything on the other person without thinking, how do I deliver this feedback, or how is this feedback being perceived? So a lot of times the intent is positive, but then the impact is quite negative. So then the blunt talk is one extreme that sometimes people do, and then they actually pride themselves for being direct and straightforward, right?
Right.
And then, but ultimately the impact is negative, and people, may or may not change as a result of that. Now, the other extreme is we call safe talk. So safe talk is that you're so careful that you don't want it to hurt the relationship, and you want to avoid discomfort. So then you dance around the issue, and you don't actually address the issue directly, and then you drop hints, and then you beat around the bush, and then you sometimes send mixed messages at the end of the conversation that the other person may or may not get the message, and walk away scratch their head and thinking, what just happened? What did he try to tell me? What did she try to say? And so because the message was vague, ambiguous, and also not so clear, that most likely nothing would change. Okay, so we wanted to avoid either blunt talk or safe talk. So then straight talk is really about being able to express the message clearly and respectfully, and then also the other person take the message and knowing that, take it in a positive way. And I have worked with leaders and for, in dealing with this type of difficult conversations quite a bit. And one way that tend to work very, very well is that I call that, let the other person empty their glass of water first. So that's a metaphor. Okay. So what that means is that imagine that each of us is holding a glass of water. Okay. And then the glass of water the water represent what's in our mind. So when we sit down and talk, that if I continue to talk and don't give you a chance to talk, it's like I'm dumping all my water in your glass. And then over time, and then after a while, your water is going to overflow, and then you have no more room in your mind to listen to anything else because it was just too much. Okay? But if as the leader, that if you do it the other way, let the other person talk first. Okay, and ask questions such as, what went well with the situation, and what challenges did you experience, and what would you do different? What would you do it differently next time? And many times that the other person will self-reflect and will be able to actually self-identify what are some of the challenges or issues that things didn't go so well, and also identify their positive traits. And then so you as a leader don't have to provide all the negative feedback because they already know what it is. In many cases that happens, and then take the pressure off the leader, and also the employee will be able to actually face those issues and then be able to address them more positive because they are already self-aware, and then they identify those issues themselves. So I often say, let them empty their glass first. And then when they do that, then you can then provide some feedback and they have some room to take additional input from you.
What do you say when they think everything went great? They're not owning any negative issues.
Yes, that does happen if they don't have that awareness, right? And then so that's why the the straight talk comes to play, is to be able to have that conversation and then to outline specific areas that you think that is not going well, and then you would like to help them, kind of find a solution going forward. Um, but then always give them a chance to self-reflect first, because that's part of developing your people, is to help them raise their awareness. And then only if they couldn't identify those areas, then you can provide your input.
Do you have an example to share?
Yes. Well, I think that there was well, actually, I don't have example to share.
That's okay.
This particular one.
If you don't have one, that's fine.
Okay, I can give you an example.
Okay. Okay, so Maya, do you have a feedback? Try this again. Maya, do you have an example about feedback?
Yes. So recently, I had an opportunity to observe this feedback conversation between a manager and an employee. So the manager was giving a feedback to the employee about the employee's presentation to a group of senior executives. And at first, that the manager just keep talking about, well, I think that you didn't make a lot of eye contact, you talk way too fast, and the PowerPoint was hard to read, it was not designed well, blah, blah, blah. And then the employee walked away feeling really not appreciated. And then he actually said, I'm never going to do this again, because it's like I couldn't get anything right. But then when I asked the leader, I said, well, could you think of anything he actually did well? He said, yeah. Well, actually, I think he did pretty well in terms of the preparation and Q&A. He did quite well. So, but I just didn't remember to mention it. I just focused on the negatives. So then I asked him to give it another try. So then he actually has scheduled another meeting, and this time that he really prepared. He thought about what he's going to say, and then he let the employee empty his glass first, going back to the metaphor. So he asked the employee what went well, and the employee said, well, I think I did fine with the Q&A. And then he said, yes, he reinforced that. And then he said, by the way, I also wanted to tell you that I think that the handout you provided was very thorough. So he actually identified one or two things that was helpful, that the employee did well. And then he asked the second question, what challenges did you experience during this presentation? And the employee said, well, I think I was a little bit nervous because I've never spoken in front of the executives before. So I thought that maybe I talked too fast, and I didn't make a lot of eye contact. And then, so the manager said, all right, so let's practice next time. There's another opportunity, and I think that it all it takes is some practice. And he used his own example of when he first time made those similar presentation years ago. That's how he felt as well. And then he also experienced a lot of nervousness and kind of a situation. And then so he made the employee feel like, oh, I'm not alone. You felt that way too. And then they agreed on we'll get together and next time to help him prepare, and so that he can rehearse ahead of time. He also offered additional resources of having somebody else help him create the PowerPoint slides, and then so that he will be well prepared for the next presentation. So when this happened, the result was completely different. The employee felt appreciated, And also this feedback was very helpful and constructive. And also the manager was able to provide some real support and real help to help him be successful next time. So it is a win-win at the end of the conversation. And the employee was excited about doing it again because he knew that, it wasn't perfect, but it was a good start. And so that was a good example of being able to let the employee self-reflect, and then you also provide support and concrete feedback, and also provide specific solutions and to help the employee get better next time. So
Yeah.
that's a good way of providing feedback, and then so the employee doesn't lose face. In fact, they feel there was a lot of support and they feel empowered to try it again.
Well, the book again is Saving Face: How to Preserve Dignity and Build Trust. Our guest has been Maya Huchan. Maya, thanks so much for joining us on the Engaging Leader podcast.
Thank you, Jesse. You can pre-order the book on Amazon.com.
Fantastic. And we'll provide all the links for people to get the book from your website and from Amazon and other places on our show notes for this episode.
Thank you so much.